What if the biggest obstacle in your life, and I mean the biggest one, whether you're talking about your career, your finances, or even your relationships, wasn't some external circumstance?
Hmm.
What if it was actually the way you interpret those circumstances?
That's a fundamentally challenging question for most people.
Right.
We're so conditioned to believe that our success or, our failure is determined by what happens to us, the facts on the ground.
Exactly. The job market, that difficult person at work, whatever it is.
But if we accept this idea that genuine success is rooted in our ability to choose our response, then attitude isn't just some minor personality trait.
Yeah.
It becomes the fundamental starting point for all meaningful change. It's the engine room.
Absolutely. And that powerful idea, that attitude is the master lever, is the core philosophy we're deep diving into today. We are pulling all our key insights from the truly insightful and wonderfully practical book, Attitude is Everything. Change your attitude and you change your life, by Jeff Keller.
Keller is such a compelling guide for this subject, and it's precisely because he wasn't born a motivational guru.
That's a great point. He didn't start there.
No, not at all. His expertise was forged in the fire of a genuine personal crisis. I mean, he did everything right, according to society's rules. He graduated from law school in 1980, established a practicing legal career.
He was on the path.
He was on track for a high six-figure income and, lifetime security.
He had the prestige, he had the income trajectory, and yet, by his early 30s, we're talking around 1985, he was profoundly miserable. He admits it himself. He was depressed, he suffered from constant headaches, felt physically hunched over from the weight of his job, and was, as he put it, spiritually dead.
Wow.
He was just traveling headlong down this road of negativity, despite all the outward signs of success.
It's that classic high achiever burnout mixed with, well, a deep misalignment. He had everything money could buy except for happiness and fulfillment. This is where the story gets really interesting. The crucial, almost cinematic turning point. It happened late one night in 1985 while he was just channel surfing, feeling completely down.
And he lands on an infomercial. At 1 in the morning?
Right. Not a prestigious course from Harvard or anything.
No, an infomercial for something called the Mental Bank Home Study Course. And it was endorsed by Florence Henderson,
Carol Brady.
the one and only.
He was desperate enough to just impulse buy it. He even notes that he sort of sheepishly told his wife, Dolores, who was shocked because it was so radically out of character for this cautious attorney.
I can imagine.
But this course, it introduced him to this revolutionary idea that everything we achieve or fail to achieve is based on our dominant subconscious beliefs.
And that impulse purchase was the spark.
It was the spark that ignited his entire transformation.
And he didn't stop there. He became, well, obsessed. He spent years, what he describes as thousands of hours, researching and synthesizing the greatest motivational concepts.
Studying the titans.
Exactly. People like Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar. He loved this hobby so much more than his actual career that he took this massive plunge in the early 1990s.
He phased out his law practice completely. And just think about that commitment for a second.
It's a huge.
He sacrificed the guaranteed income, the professional prestige, the security of a path that had taken him years of dedicated training and 10 years of practice
You walked away from all of it.
to become a motivational speaker and writer.
Yeah, and he had to deal with the social repercussions, too. He mentions his mother's initial, deep disapproval of him giving up the lawyer title for the uncertainty of motivational speaking.
I can only imagine that conversation.
But his insistence is that the positive changes he made in his own life are proof positive that attitude truly is everything. He built a system that worked for him, and he's sharing the architecture of that system with us today. Now, if you found Keller's personal story, this idea that you can pivot from deep misery to profound fulfillment just by changing your internal framework, as captivating as we did, I want to invite you to do something quick. Make sure you subscribe to the Audiobooks channel right now. We are dedicated to bringing you these deep dives, which cut straight to the most useful knowledge and captivating summaries from the world's best books. Don't miss out on another one.
Okay, so let's pivot from Keller's personal transformation to the foundational architecture that allowed it. And that begins, as he insists, with the mind itself.
Let's do it.
We are going straight into lesson 1, the core concept.
Keller starts with this beautiful, simple, and just incredibly powerful definition. Attitude is the mental filter through which you experience the world.
It's such an easy-to-grasp metaphor.
It really is. It's often captured by that classic contrast of the glass half full versus the glass half empty.
And that mental filter, it dictates absolutely everything that follows. It's the operating system of your life.
Yeah.
Keller brings this home with this great little anecdote of Sarah and Sam at a coffee shop. They arrive at the same time, are greeted by the same hostess, served by the same waitress, wait the exact same amount of time, and get the identical meal.
So all the external factors are identical.
Identical.
Yet their subjective experiences couldn't be more different. Sarah walks in with a positive outlook. Her mental filter is clear. She exchanges pleasantries with the waitress, enjoys the food, and sees the wait time as, an opportunity to quietly reflect.
So she leaves feeling great.
She leaves feeling delighted and recharged, seeing the world as cooperative.
And then there's Sam.
Sam. Conversely, he walks in with a filter that's just dominated by pessimism. He's already hunched, tense, suspicious.
He's looking for problems.
And he finds them. He interprets the brief wait as a deliberate snub. He finds fault with the food. He's furious about the speed of the check and ends up scowling, convinced the world is against him.
Despite the identical external environment.
Exactly. Sam's day is ruined because his internal filter is negative.
That is the ultimate takeaway from that story, isn't it? The external facts just don't matter as much as the internal interpretation.
The contrast is so stark. A negative attitude thinks, I can't. It dwells on problems, finds fault in others, focuses relentlessly on what's missing, and sees limitations everywhere.
While the positive attitude thinks, I can, it concentrates on solutions, looks for the good in others, counts its blessings, and sees possibilities where the other sees walls.
And this divergence in thought patterns, it literally determines what information your brain even allows in.
Which brings us directly to a key conceptual component of this first lesson, which Keller calls the dirty window syndrome.
The dirty window syndrome.
Yeah. We all start life like infants with a clean mental window.
Okay, explain that.
Well, think about a child learning to walk. They fall, on average, dozens and dozens of times.
Right.
They never blame the carpet. They don't give up and decide they're not meant to be walkers. They just smile, get up, and they persist with this absolute enthusiasm until they master it.
They genuinely believe they can conquer the world. That's a clean window.
Exactly. But then life starts throwing things at that window. The dirt begins to accumulate.
The criticism.
Constant criticism from teachers or parents, ridicule from peers, professional rejection, personal disappointments, self-doubt. Keller admits this was his road as an attorney. A window splattered with the mud of negativity and anxiety.
Which makes it impossible to clearly see positive possibilities.
Or opportunities, yeah. And this is the tragedy that Keller desperately wants you, the listener, to avoid. Too many people continue through adulthood with a filthy window.
They lose that childhood enthusiasm.
They stop trying to learn new skills. They give up on their dreams, not because of some external reality, but because their view of reality is compromised by all that psychological grime.
They stop seeing what's possible and only see what's difficult. So how do we clean it?
Well, the ultimate insight here is that you control your attitude. It is your job, your primary responsibility, to keep that window clean.
Okay, but a lot of people might say, that sounds nice, but life is genuinely hard. How can I possibly choose happiness when I'm facing real financial stress or, an illness?
And that's a fair and critical question. Keller addresses it by immediately setting the highest possible benchmark for this choice. Viktor Frankl.
Wow.
We have to look to the most extreme circumstances to understand the profound power of this choice.
Frankl, as a Jew imprisoned for years in Nazi death camps, he endured unspeakable suffering, witnessed the loss of his entire immediate family.
In that environment where every single external freedom was stripped away, where survival was purely a matter of chance, he somehow found the spiritual capacity to choose his internal response.
It's almost unimaginable.
Frankl documented that the last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He observed that the prisoners who survived, mentally and spiritually, were the ones who chose to maintain a sense of purpose and integrity.
They resisted the internal dehumanization.
Exactly. The person a prisoner became was the result of an inner decision.
The power of that example is just breathtaking. If Frankl, under conditions designed to obliterate hope, had the spiritual independence to choose his attitude, then we,
facing a difficult boss or traffic or some minor setback, have no excuse for surrendering that choice.
It really grounds Keller's entire philosophy in a reality check that is impossible to ignore.
It does, and Keller reinforces this with a quote from Hugh Downs. A happy person is not a person in a certain set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes.
So attitude isn't just a desirable trait.
It's the prerequisite for activating all the other success principles we're about to discuss. You just can't successfully apply focus or commitment or networking if the light of those principles is trying to shine through a thick layer of self-doubt and negativity, that filthy mental window.
Okay, so now that we've established attitude as the necessary filter, we can move from the macro concept to the micro mechanism of belief.
Yes. Thoughts. Lesson 2 introduces what Earl Nightingale famously called the strangest secret, which can boil down success and failure to just 6 powerful words.
Which are?
We become what we think about.
This concept isn't new, but Keller emphasizes it because it's so foundational to achievement.
Right. It's been echoed throughout history. Napoleon Hill, for instance, taught that what the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
And Henry Ford, the industrial giant, he made it so concrete. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
And it's not just about wishing for something. It's about establishing the law of dominant thought.
The law of dominant thought.
Your subconscious mind acts like a precise internal human magnet. It automatically propels you in the direction of your most frequent, repetitive, and dominant thoughts.
So if your dominant thought is fear,
You'll find reasons to fear. If it's lack, you'll attract lack.
Keller illustrates this brilliantly with the example of Fred. Let's say Fred is a worker who currently earns $30,000 a year.
Okay.
He earns this amount because his dominant subconscious belief system affirms that $30,000 is his maximum capability, and so his magnet attracts opportunities that match that belief.
The salary he applied for, the skills he chose to learn, the effort he puts in, all of it.
Right. Now, if Fred merely wishes to earn $50,000, but still operates with that same dominant thought pattern of a $30,000 per year person, he will fail.
To achieve that higher goal, he has to fundamentally change his self-concept. He must continually think, believe, and internally prepare for the responsibilities, the knowledge, and the effort required of a $50,000 earner.
And this is where we really need to spend a moment, because this is where a lot of self-help approaches can fall short. It's not just a declaration.
No, it's a deep internal transformation.
The work isn't just visualizing the $50,000 check. It's mentally performing the tasks and overcoming the challenges inherent to that higher pay grade.
He must literally believe he is a $50,000 person, not just a lucky $30,000 person.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Keller brings in his own personal evidence to back this up. His real estate turnaround.
Okay.
Throughout the 70s and early 80s, he watched other people successfully invest in homes and make fortunes. But he never took action.
Why not?
Because his thinking was dominated by anxiety, all the things that could go wrong with mortgages, tenants, repairs. His negative attitude blocked him.
So his magnet was attracting inaction.
Exactly. But in the summer of 1986, after he had his attitude shift, he made a concrete, written commitment. He would purchase 2 investment homes before the end of the year.
He wrote it down.
He didn't just think it once. He wrote that specific defined goal down multiple times every single day.
And the change in that dominant thought instantly changed his magnet.
He felt compelled to take action. He contacted realtors, started visiting properties, ultimately visiting nearly 100 properties.
And the timeline here is crucial.
He achieved his goal, purchasing the second investment home on December 29th, just 2 days before his self-imposed deadline.
Wow.
The ultimate lesson here is that thought precedes action. He always knew what to do: contact realtors, visit homes, but he never took the first step until he changed his dominant belief system.
When your belief changes, the necessary actions cease to be obstacles.
They become inevitabilities.
And this mechanism is the logical precursor to lesson 3, visualization.
Which is the practical technique for harnessing those thoughts.
Yes. Using mental movies and inner pictures. We're constantly creating these movies, often unconsciously, and basing them on old, limiting scripts, especially from childhood.
So if you were ridiculed or heavily criticized by a teacher early in life, you might still carry that image of public humiliation.
Right. And as an adult, that old mental movie can play silently in the background, causing you to hesitate or hold back in important meetings.
You're unconsciously avoiding the emotional pain of the old script.
But the truly exciting part is taking deliberate control. Keller insists that you are the producer, director, and casting director of your mental movies. If you don't consciously decide what pictures to play, your mind just defaults to replaying those dusty, limiting archives from your past.
The movies that have already proven to fail you.
Exactly.
So how do we consciously create new, empowering movies.
Keller provides 3 key techniques. The first is revising old scripts. You can't change the physical past event that criticism happened, but you can absolutely alter your interpretation of it.
So that criticism wasn't a definitive statement about your overall worth or intelligence.
It was perhaps just a momentary disagreement, or even a reflection of the critic's own poor communication skills. By consciously revising the meaning you assign to the event, you diffuse the limiting power of that memory.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second technique?
The second is sensory immersion. When you visualize, you have to relax, close your eyes, and involve every single sense. Sight, sound, smell, touch, and especially the emotional state you'll feel upon achievement.
So don't just see the beach house.
No, see the specific colors, the right walls, the peach trim, smell the salty air, hear the rhythmic crash of the waves, feel the warm sand between your toes, and the sheer joy of having achieved that financial freedom. The more vivid the sensory and emotional detail, the stronger the magnet pulls.
And finally, we have visual aids for subconscious programming.
It's
It's about making the goal tangible.
And the power here comes from conviction. Look at the famous story of Jim Carrey.
Right, the check.
In 1990, when he was still a struggling comedian, he wrote a post-dated check to himself for $10 million.
For acting services rendered.
Dated Thanksgiving, 1995. And he carried that physical check in his wallet for years.
It wasn't just a vision board post-it note. It was a tangible, negotiable instrument that conditioned his mind daily. He was acting as if the deal was already done.
And he knew that if he was making that kind of money, he would have achieved a specific level of performance working with the best people. And he did it. He famously earned $7 million for Dumb and Dumber in '94, and then hit $20 million per movie shortly after.
And this strategy isn't just limited to wealth.
No. Keller advised his friend, Robert Jones, who was running for a tough judgeship, to make visible handwritten signs reading Judge Robert Jones.
And put them everywhere.
On his nightstand, the bathroom mirror, in his wallet. By seeing that desired identity daily, Judge Jones was conditioning his mind to see himself in the black robes.
And that conditioning fueled the necessary actions, the campaigning, the voter outreach.
And it ultimately led to his success. The visual aid made the abstract image of success a daily, compelling reality.
But there's a critical warning here.
A huge one, the danger of negative aids. The mechanism works in reverse.
Keller points to that popular bumper sticker, I owe, so off to work I go.
He says that's not a harmless joke.
Not at all. If Alice drives around saying I owe constantly, she is actively programming her subconscious mind to reinforce the identity of a debtor.
She's embedding the idea of financial struggle in her self-concept.
So her magnet will then attract circumstances that confirm that belief.
Exactly. Unexpected repair bills, a minor medical issue, and she'll attribute it all to bad luck.
When in reality, Keller argues, she has simply been careless about the internal and external inputs she allows into her mind. You have to be the active director of your mental movies.
And the conscious editor of your visual aids. You have to ensure they align with where you want to go.
Okay, so moving from thinking to the fuel that drives sustained action, Lesson 4 focuses on commitment.
Yes. And Keller defines commitment so simply and so profoundly as the willingness to do whatever it takes.
With the important exclusion of illegal or unethical acts.
Of course, it's an unwavering mental attitude that says, whether it takes 5 steps, 55 steps, or 155 steps, I will see this through.
And this is where the metaphysical aspect of Keller's thinking really comes in. He talks about the magic of commitment.
He does, quoting W.H. Murray. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred.
Now let's unpack that idea of providence. He isn't suggesting literal magic, right?
No, he's suggesting that the subconscious mind, now fully committed, begins to operate differently. It starts filtering reality to identify resources, people, and opportunities that it previously ignored because they didn't align with the old limiting thought pattern.
So the magnet is just working at full strength.
Exactly. Keller experienced this himself. When he committed to writing and sharing his motivational principles, he just started putting articles together. A few months later, Stu Kamen, a complete stranger, called him out of the blue.
And how did he find him?
He saw one of Keller's articles published in another source. Kamen was a freelance writer who specialized in producing newsletters. He asked Keller if he'd ever thought of starting one. 1 month later, the attitude is, everything newsletter was published. The opportunity was literally created by the commitment itself.
Doors will open, but you have to first commit to walking through them.
And that commitment almost always requires massive persistence, often over very long periods of time.
Like the novelist David Baldacci.
Perfect example. He was a practicing lawyer who committed fully to learning the craft of writing. For 10 relentless years, he worked his day job and then started his writing shift every night from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m.
That is grueling.
4 hours of disciplined, creative work, 5 or 6 nights a week for 10 years.
And his total sales for those 10 years?
Zero.
Zero.
He faced hundreds of rejections from agents and publishers. A negative filter would have told him, you're wasting your time.
But his commitment was total.
And in 1996, that persistence paid off when Absolute Power launched his career, earning him millions and making him a globally recognized author.
Or take the incredibly audacious example of Jerry Gladstone, who founded American Royal Arts. He was convinced he needed a Disney license. For 3 years, he got an absolute flat no from the Disney executives.
They're not budging.
No. Finally, one executive, fed up with Jerry's persistence, told him, "You are never going to get a license from us."
So what'd he do?
As a final measure to get rid of him, the executive offered Jerry 2 territories known to be impossible: Minnesota or Massachusetts.
He was setting him up to fail.
But Jerry's commitment was so high, his attitude so positive, that he didn't hear impossible. He heard opportunity. He flew to Boston the very next day, signed a lease on an expensive street, and called the executive to report that he had secured the Massachusetts location.
No way.
That sheer display of courage, that willingness to take a massive financial risk based purely on conviction, it made the executive laugh.
It changed everything.
Instantly, it proved Jerry was a serious player. Within a year, he was granted the license and became the largest volume Disney animation art dealer in the world.
And just to prove commitment transcends age, you have the incredible story of Benjamin Roll.
Oh, this one is amazing. He started law school in his 60s.
He failed the rigorous California bar exam 13 times over 6 long years.
13 times. Most people quit after the first or second failure.
But Roll persisted, taking the exam for the 14th time at age 74, and he finally passed. His commitment wasn't predicated on fast results, but on final completion. He said, "I was going to pass that cotton picking exam if I lived long enough."
Wow. That defines lesson 4. Commitment means doing whatever it takes for as long as it takes.
And because life is guaranteed to test that commitment, obstacles and disappointments are inevitable.
Which transitions us naturally into lesson 5, turning problems into opportunities.
The fundamental choice after a setback is whether you will wallow in misery and use it as an excuse, or whether you will proactively find the benefit or the lesson that the problem is offering you.
It's that Napoleon Hill quote again.
Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. A problem is simply an opportunity to make a necessary adjustment.
So a job loss might force you to finally start that business you dreamed of.
Or a perfect job offer falling through might clear the path for a much better unanticipated opportunity later. The key is how you choose to frame the rejection.
Keller uses the example of Dave Bruno. He suffered a string of terrible luck, lost his job, was in a nearly fatal car crash, had to declare bankruptcy.
While recovering, he was forced to just spend time reflecting. He realized his decades-long collection of inspirational quotes could be the basis for a business idea.
So that tragic accident, which brought him to the brink, gave him a second chance.
It forced him out of his old habits. He started printing the quotes on metallic success gold cards. It took years, but he successfully turned that crisis into an incredible triumph, eventually selling over 2 million cards.
The pain and the crisis were necessary catalysts for his change in direction.
To make this philosophy immediately actionable, Keller outlines 7 specific ways adversity serves us.
Okay, let's break them down.
First, adversity gives us perspective. Experiencing a life-threatening illness or a major emotional loss, it puts minor annoyances, a flat tire, a leaky faucet, into sharp relief.
It allows you to focus on what's truly important.
Second, it teaches us to be grateful. You never appreciate hot water until the boiler breaks in winter.
Or good health until you're sick.
Third, adversity brings out hidden potential. When you're faced with a difficult ordeal, you're forced to muster courage and internal resources you didn't even know you possessed.
Which makes you stronger for the next hurdle.
Fourth, adversity encourages us to make changes and take action. Crisis is a wake-up call. It pulls us out of comfortable, old, boring, or just painful patterns.
Fifth, adversity teaches valuable lessons. A failed business venture, if you analyze it correctly, teaches you exactly what to do differently next time.
You purchase wisdom with your failure.
Sixth, it opens a new door. Sometimes a relationship terminates, leading to a much more satisfying one you wouldn't have sought otherwise.
And seventh, adversity builds confidence and self-esteem. By successfully navigating an obstacle, you feel a genuine sense of competence that permeates everything else you do.
You aren't destroyed by your problems. They're catalysts for your growth.
Precisely.
Okay, we shift now from thinking and commitment to the crucial interface between the internal world and the external result, language.
Yes. Lesson 6 emphasizes that your words blaze a trail, reinforcing that inescapable cycle. Thoughts generate words, which solidify beliefs, leading to actions and ultimately determining results.
So if your words are negative, they reinforce negative beliefs and you get locked into negative outcomes.
Keller highlights the profound danger of self-sabotage through language, using his own example with home repairs. For 40 years, he repeatedly verbalized, "I'm no good at mechanical things and I can't fix anything."
And after 40 years of that, he'd created an incredibly strong, self-fulfilling belief. His mind heard the command, and it set out to prove him right.
We have to contrast that with the empowering language used by high achievers. Consider Tent Cullors, the blind scientist who headed NASA's search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
A field that requires intense visual data processing.
When describing his condition blindness, he refers to it not as a debilitating handicap, but as a trivial affliction, or just barely an inconvenience.
By consistently using language that minimizes his limitation, he empowers himself to operate beyond it. His words define his reality.
And language can also create tremendous accountability. Look at Zig Ziglar. He wanted to drop 37 pounds.
Right.
While writing his book, See You at the Top, he included a factual statement that he weighed 165 pounds, even though the book wouldn't go to press for 10 months.
He intentionally leveraged the power of his public word. He put his credibility on the line.
Knowing he couldn't be caught in a lie, he had a fierce external motivator and lost the 37 pounds before the book was printed.
That's the power of using words to burn your bridges and force positive action.
And we can change our emotional state simply by changing the label we apply to it. Anthony Robbins emphasizes how changing your vocabulary alters emotional intensity.
So if you replace angry with furious, your physiology escalates.
But if you consciously downgrade the label, calling the same situation annoying or mildly irritated, you lower the emotional impact.
It gives you the distance to break the negative cycle.
Exactly. And similarly, replacing a lukewarm response like, "I feel okay," with "I feel phenomenal," heightens positive emotion and instantly boosts your spirits.
Which leads us perfectly into Lesson 7, the daily audit of how are you?
This simple question is asked and answered 10 to 50 times a day, and yet most people use responses that subtly but powerfully shape their attitudes in a negative way.
Keller categorizes the typical responses. The negative group says things like lousy, terrible, or the big one, thank God it's Friday.
Which means they're actively conceding that 4/5 of their working week is bad. It reinforces a victim mentality.
Then you have the mediocre group. I'm okay, not too bad, hanging in there.
These diminish energy, encourage a slouched posture, and condition the mind for the status quo, which delivers mediocre results.
And finally, the positive group. Terrific, fantastic, excellent. These are high-energy responses.
They attract people, they instantly improve your posture, and they set an expectation of positive results for the rest of your day.
Keller advocates responding with enthusiasm, even if you don't feel 100% yet.
And this is a direct application of the act-as-if principle. The classic illustration is Sally, who feels physically tired and exhausted all day.
Okay.
She complains of fatigue, which feels real to her. But imagine she reads her lottery ticket and discovers she just won $10 million.
Does she suddenly feel tired? Absolutely not.
She leaps up, screaming, energized, suddenly possessing the vitality of a teenager. Her instantaneous transformation was entirely mental, not physical.
The fatigue was a choice of focus.
So by acting as if you feel terrific, even when you don't, you change your internal physiology and your mind begins to correspond to that optimistic, high-energy language.
And this brings us to Lesson 8, which is perhaps the most difficult but most important behavioral change.
Stop complaining.
Yes. Keller states that complaining is utterly counterproductive because it reinforces suffering and it drives away the supportive people you need in your life.
That old adage captures it perfectly. 90% of the people don't care about your problems, and the other 10% are glad you have them.
When you complain, you gain nothing but lost energy and negative reinforcement.
And the social dynamic of complaining is often governed by what's called the principle of escalation.
You complain about a headache.
And the listener interrupts to claim their back pain is worse or their situation is more hopeless. It just turns into a competitive cycle of misery.
Keller got a huge reminder of this when he was caught up in his own business problems, complaining about daily hassles.
What happened?
His office cleaner, Pedro, from Honduras, walked in. Pedro's family had just lost everything in Hurricane Mitch. Their home, clean water was scarce, they were living in a shelter.
He had every reason in the world to complain.
Yet he was upbeat, smiling, and focused solely on coordinating aid for his devastated community. Pedro's perspective instantly stopped Keller's own petty complaints dead in their tracks.
It's all about perspective.
Complaining often stems from a profound lack of it. By consciously dedicating your energy to solving the problem, rather than reinforcing the suffering with negative words, you keep your attitude positive and productive.
It reminds me of that quote from Eddie Rickenbacker, who, after 21 days adrift in the Pacific during World War II, concluded, "If you have all the fresh water you want to drink and all the food you want to eat, you ought never complain about anything."
What a potent filter for gratitude.
It really is.
All right, now we shift fully into the final stage of Keller's architecture, the ACT stage.
Yes. You won't achieve your dreams until you take action. And the first lesson in action is managing your environment. Lesson 9 is all about external influence. Associate with positive people.
The axiom here is ancient and undeniable. Tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are.
We are sponges. We just absorb the environment we immerse ourselves in. So you have to consciously choose nourishing people over toxic people.
Toxic people are the dream killers, or energy vampires.
They spew verbal poison, dragging down every conversation with gloomy pronouncements about the economy, politics, or their list of aches and pains.
If you spend time with them, their negative messages will inevitably wear down your positive attitude.
While nourishing people are supportive, positive, enthusiastic, they lift your spirits and encourage your ambition.
Keller's friend, Smokey Stover, explained this with his sponge theory.
Humans soak up the repeated messages of those around them. If your friends are negative, you have to be honest about the damage you're absorbing.
This means being strategic about limiting involvement. Smokey's strategy was immediate disengagement. Just, "Gosh, it's been good to see you, Charlie," and move on.
It means understanding that hanging around negative friends doesn't help them, and it demonstrably damages you.
This even extends to toxic relatives. Family ties are precious, but Keller insists you have to establish boundaries.
If a relative is constantly criticizing your goals, you need to limit those calls, or gently but firmly shift the conversation when they start down that negative path.
And the business community is waking up to this. Keller notes that seminars are now being developed on how to legally fire employees with attitude problems.
Wow, attitude is literally a quantifiable requirement for job retention and success.
You just can't afford to let your internal environment be polluted or your external network drag you down.
So the next great barrier to action is fear. Lesson 10 is blunt. Confront your fears and grow.
As Gil Eagles put it, if you want to be successful, you must be willing to be uncomfortable.
Most people, when faced with fear, they immediately retreat back into their comfort zone, which is just a losing strategy in life.
We all have a comfort zone, the area of familiar activities, and fears, Keller calls them the X's, they lie outside this circle.
The common fears he identified are almost universal. Public speaking, hearing no, rejection, changing jobs, starting a new business, and just the fear of failure itself.
But what's the price of that retreat? Keller gives his own painful example from high school.
He never asked anyone out on a date to avoid the temporary anxiety of rejection. He successfully avoided the momentary discomfort, but the long-term cost was far higher.
He felt horrible, powerless, and sabotaged his entire social calendar for years.
Retreating lowers self-esteem, creates chronic frustration, and it locks you into a boring life.
So the critical strategy here is to radically reframe the situation. Don't worry about the final result. Consider yourself an immediate winner just by taking the step and doing the thing you fear, regardless of the outcome.
So if your knees are shaking during a big presentation, that doesn't matter.
You face the fear. That's the victory.
Keller's own first motivational speech was admittedly nothing to write home about, and he was terrified, but he took the step anyway. 11 years later, he was a professional speaker addressing audiences of thousands. The action itself is the victory.
This mindset is so transformative. Look at Dottie Berman, a high school English teacher who retired in her 50s to pursue her lifelong dream of show business singing and cabaret.
She was initially so scared of failure that she tried to withdraw her resignation.
But 6 months later, she confronted that fear, retired, and started performing. She proved that happiness is found on the other side of discomfort.
When you push through fear, that activity becomes part of your expanded comfort zone. It builds tremendous confidence that translates into all other areas of your life.
Which brings us to the final, necessary component of the action imperative: failure.
Lesson 11 demands that you get out there and fail.
Failure is not final. Quitting is final. Success is largely a matter of pure, unadulterated persistence.
Winston Churchill's quote captures the exact attitude required. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
The world's most successful people fail constantly. They just choose to view failure differently.
Consider the math. A top professional baseball player who makes millions is lauded as a hero, but fails 70% of the time they step up to the plate.
And Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player ever, had a career shooting percentage of only 50%. Half his shots were failures.
We have to reframe failure as necessary input, as tuition paid for the next lesson.
Look at the iconic Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen received a staggering 33 rejections over 3 years before getting a single yes.
33. They could have quit 33 times. They lived on credit, faced endless skepticism.
But their positive attitude and persistence sustained them. That single yes launched a series that has sold over 30 million copies worldwide.
33 failures were simply a necessary component of that spectacular success.
So when you, the listener, face discouragement, Keller insists you have to self-audit using some key questions. First, do I have an unrealistic timetable?
Remember, success is climbing one step at a time, not teleportation.
Second, am I truly committed? Am I willing to do whatever it takes, driven by a deep, sustained passion? Third, do I have too many discouraging influences?
Is your negative network poisoning your resolve?
Fourth, am I preparing to succeed? Am I reading, listening, finding a coach or mentor to sharpen my skills?
And most critically, fifth, am I truly willing to fail? You have to look failure squarely in the face and welcome it as an unavoidable, vital component of growth.
When you're no longer afraid to fail, you remove the last psychological barrier and you're well on your way.
And the final principle Keller covers is the acceleration factor. Networking that gets results.
Networking is defined as the development of relationships with people for mutual benefit. The reality is you simply cannot succeed on a grand scale alone.
And the foundational ethical principle of networking must be givers get. Your goal must be to serve others first. You have to constantly think, how can I serve others, rather than solely focusing on what's in it for me.
Is that classic Zig Ziglar wisdom.
You can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. This is how the network organically expands and strengthens.
We saw this chain reaction in Keller's own story. Stu Kamen helped Keller. That led to a feature in a major newsletter, which led to Jim Donovan, who referred Keller to his book publisher.
These leveraged relationships allowed his efforts to achieve far more than he could have achieved solo.
So Keller outlines 16 specific techniques for effective networking, grouping them into 4 actionable categories.
The first is attitude and action. You must project a winning attitude. If you're positive, enthusiastic, genuinely excited about life, people will naturally want to spend time with you and help you succeed.
This also includes active participation. Stu Kamen joined the Long Island Advertising Club and immediately volunteered for committees. He wasn't passive.
Within 6 months, he was on the board of directors, and he estimated over 50% of his business could eventually be traced back to his active involvement in that single club.
The second category is referrals. If you refer someone, always make sure the person mentions your name as the source.
This isn't for vanity. It's to ensure your contact knows you're actively looking out for their best interests. And crucially, be selective quality over quantity.
Third is communication. Be a good listener. Avoid the me types who only talk about their own accomplishments. True networking requires listening to understand others' needs.
This also includes small gestures of care, like Keller's annual December client calls, where his only agenda was to be friendly and reconnect personally.
He found those genuine calls often resulted in unexpected business, which was simply a byproduct of sincere care, not a planned sales pitch.
You should also treat every person you meet as important. Don't gaze around a room looking for more important people. The receptionist today could be the CEO's spouse tomorrow.
And finally, we get to the most vital step, which so many people fail at.
Follow up. This is absolutely essential. Send a prompt personal note, ideally within 48 hours after meeting someone.
And critically, always send a genuine thank you note, or make a personalized call when you receive a referral or helpful materials. If you don't acknowledge their effort, they won't be likely to assist you in the future.
Sending congratulatory cards for personal milestones like promotions or marriages also makes you stand out because so few people do it consistently.
However, Keller provides an essential final caveat that we have to stress.
Great networking skills are not, under any circumstances, a substitute for being genuinely excellent in your field. You need talent, continuous self-improvement, and preparation for your networking efforts to yield truly sustained results.
So, we've journeyed through the three-part architecture of attitude laid out by Jeff Keller. Think mastering your belief in visualization.
Speak controlling your words and stopping complaints.
And ACT committing fully, confronting fear, and leveraging a positive network.
Keller's journey from a depressed, self-limiting lawyer to an empowered speaker and author, it just provides concrete proof that this framework works. When you choose to change your attitude, you consciously spark energy, you train yourself to see new possibilities, and you activate the magnet that pulls you toward decisive action.
The power of attitude is perhaps best summarized by Dr. Charles Swindoll, whose words Keller cites as capturing the entire essence of the book, and we want to share this profound thought with you.
The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts, is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it.
You are in charge of your attitude. And if your current circumstances are, as Keller argues, a reflection of your dominant thoughts and words, then the next step has to be immediate surgical change.
So we leave you with this final challenge, something to mull over and act on today. What is the single most negative statement, that recurring self-limiting phrase about your abilities, your luck, or your prospects that you make to yourself or others every single day? Identify that limiting phrase right now.
And then decide what positive, high-energy phrase you will use to replace it, starting this very moment. Change your thinking, and you change your life.